It happened, you guys. 2 of the final 3 matchups of the women's college basketball season. The semifinals here in Tampa, Florida went down, and we're going to talk about it. Welcome to the wrap-up presented by AT&T. You know us, you love us. Christine Williamson, Monica McNutt, Ari Chambers, and Carolyn Peck here post-game. I mean, we saw 2 matches, 2 interesting matchups today. Let's talk a little bit about them because, CP, I know that you saw some consistencies in both of them. So the first game, South Carolina defeated Texas 74-57. The second one, UConn took down UCLA 85-51. There was a theme that you saw. CP.
Well, the biggest thing that I thought was going to be most important for South Carolina is that they didn't take bad shots. They let their offense flow. Not only did they not take bad shots, but they shot over 50% in this semifinal round. And I think that if they can play with that consistency, that could possibly help them get their 5th championship.
So we talked before this matchup about the fact that South Carolina, throughout the tournament, really hasn't looked like the South Carolina of old. They haven't dominated in the way that they did tonight. Why do you think they were able to do that tonight, Ari?
Because they are used to this. They're accustomed to this. This is not the first time they've been here. You have a Texas team that hasn't been here a while. We're going to get to UCLA. It was history that they were here in general. But experience really shows when it comes to be tournament time, and that's exactly what you saw tonight.
And we talk a lot about just the youth and what experience means. South Carolina, as you mentioned, has been here. So has UConn. So how does experience really play into a matchup like these?
Well, literally to your schedule, to understanding the demands of not just being prepared for the game and having practice, but the media obligations, right? The body training and the physicality to extend your season deep into March and now into April as we are. And so I think that is one thing, the actual logistics of it. But I also think you see it in the poise of these teams, right? Like they jumped out. They took leads. South Carolina took them to the second half to really take a big lead. But you look at Texas, their opponent, Madison Booker, who's been terrific all year long, player of the year in the SEC, but she picks up 3 fouls in the first half. That is absolutely uncharacteristic for who she's been. And it just sort of speaks to the nerves, and the Longhorns playing a little bit tight in that one.
I mean, it can rattle you, too. It can rattle your whole team when your star player is out, when they're supposed to be the one who's anchoring you throughout the whole time.
But I think the biggest difference, though, is the experience of the coaches. Okay, Vic Schaefer was here with Mississippi State, but has not been here with Texas. This is Corey Close's first trip. And you really don't understand how to prepare a team to get there until you're in it. You know, we talked about, you all have taken hot yoga.
Yes.
You know, and when you take hot yoga and it's early, and, you know, when you're starting your practice, if you lose your breathing, it's hard to recover to catch up. Well, that's what happened today for UCLA. They lost their breathing because they lost their confidence, and they were not able to really recapture that going against Connecticut.
Talk a little bit more about that, because we were looking at Lauren Betts, and there was a point where you said you feel like she's tired. She was doing it all for her team, really. What did you see from UCLA and what they were able to do tonight?
Well, I think what Connecticut did was they said that they were going to take away UCLA's three-point shooting, and so when that happens, then they're relying heavily on Lauren Betts. But El Alfie for Connecticut was keeping Betts from getting 2 feet in the paint. If she got there, she had to work double and triple time to do that, and you did. I felt like, see Lauren Betts just look exhausted. She was giving everything she could, but y'all know it's tough in the paint when you got to go to work.
For sure. I mean, just to reiterate that, 26 points for Betts. Nobody else for UCLA even cracked double digits, and that's just not a sustainable flow. You look at the way they've been able to be successful through this tournament, and they talked about being able to find composure in tight ball games and find themselves, and that's from Kiki Rice, Gabriella Jaquez, Tamia Gardner had that big game to get them into the Final Four. Tonight, you didn't see any of that, and so I think you really got to give a tip of the cap to UConn in terms of their commitment to the defensive scheme. It started with Jana Alfie, but then when you look at the double teams and triple teams, they were right on time.
Well, they were double team and triple teaming, but you still had London Jones, 0 points. Gabriella Jaquez, 0 points. So the shooters, even when they double teamed out, the rotations, the scramble out from Connecticut were on point.
And just on a surface level, you know, it's better to throw the punch instead of react. And UConn threw the punch, and UCLA was left to react, and that's never a position you want to be in. At one point, I think it was in the second quarter, they were just passing the ball down the court.
Yeah.
I was like, this is reminiscent of like
volleyball.
No, honestly,
Paige Bueckers had that touch pass.
She literally said to her hitter, okay, come on, volleyball.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but it was reminiscent of Stewie's time at Connecticut, because that was a team that was historically not one to dribble, and they were just having their way with UCLA.
I forget who said it when we were in the green room, but somebody said that Azzi and Paige, when they're able to dominate in games like this, they still look like like they're having fun.
Yeah.
What do you see out of those two when they come out here and dominate like that?
Okay, look, they're best friends.
Yeah.
Right? And so they want to see each other do well. Paige got going early in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and now Azzi Fudd coming along. And that makes Paige Bueckers even happier. And when Paige Bueckers is happy, oh, my goodness.
19 first half points for
Crazy.
Azzi Fudd. And
Crazy.
shout out to my girl, also a DMV girly. I just also think, I can't help but think of the gratitude that Azzi is playing with at this point in her career. And Holly did a great job at halftime asking her about getting back. And she was very honest, although she had to catch her breath, about wanting to soak up the moments and how this team is so special to her. So she's trying to do her best to stay present. But it has been a long journey for that young woman to get back to a final or have the opportunity to play in a Final Four and compete for a championship due to health.
She said it's been over 1,000 days since she had her last semifinal, and just not taking it for granted, knowing that this is the last time all that team is going to be together. And she's able to, historically she hasn't been the best postseason player, and she's admitted it herself. Like, I get a little rocky now, but she came out confident, and that's what we want to say.
I want to talk a little bit more about Paige because we mentioned the fact that she had that little set in the game, but she didn't have the little set, the little assist, the little calm assist, but she didn't have the 30-point game that we're used to seeing her have. However, as we saw, she did impact the game in other ways. What else did you see out of her, CP?
Connecticut scored 85 points. And I think to win a championship, your big three have to show up. It can't be just one person, and the rest of the team is shut down. And when you spread the wealth, then I think that just opens up opportunity. And the thing that I love, too, about Paige Bueckers, she doesn't ever force shots. And so coming off screen, she's reading. If the defense is there, then she's making the extra pass. If it's not, well, she's going to make you pay. But she has great court vision in finding the opportunities for her to score and when she needs to get somebody else involved.
She had 2 assists tonight, which is, the number doesn't jump off the page at you. But when you look at the 83 points of this, or 85 points that this group was able to score, they had 17 assists on 33 made shots. So over half of their baskets were assisted on in terms of them being able to move the basketball. So there's less pressure on Paige. Did I do my math right?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know.
33 and 17. Yeah, that's right. I did it right. Anyway, so there's less pressure on her in terms of having to fill it up and be the scorer we saw her be the last 2 rounds.
She only has 2 assists. I would like to go back and look how many hockey assists did she not get credit, because she set things up, and then Connecticut is so good at moving the basketball and making the extra.
And then on the other end of the floor, I was impressed with her and her disruption too.
Yeah.
Speaking of disruption, Sarah Strong.
Come on, get it to the freshman.
Period.
Come on, shoulders.
Period.
It's
Okay.
Monica's shoulders.
Monica pulled out the shimmy. She was
pause
huge in the third quarter, especially. What did you see out of her?
Well, Sarah Strong is still hunting buckets. I think that the experience that she had in that elite game has carried over now that we are here in Tampa. This freshman is not waiting for you to call her number, but she is calling the number herself. A lot of confidence, the versatility, the running of the floor. This freshman is something special. And listen, on Sunday, we got a matchup of a couple of freshmen because we'll have Sarah Strong going against Joyce Edwards.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Before we do that, the transition, but just
I got excited. I'm
Before
sorry.
we talk about that, hold on.
for what she lacks in size, she has it in versatility, and so just being able to have a big that can set up on the wing and shoot and not go, oh God, please don't do that. It wasn't a bad shot for her, and she made what, three points?
Yeah. Well, after that first quarter interview with Holly, Jana L. Elfie was doing a terrific job in terms of guarding Lauren Betts, but you also heard Gina Auriemma talk about Sarah Strong having to guard Betts at points and how her versatility helped stave this UConn defense and keep them anchored. But on the other side of the floor, Betts struggled to match up with Strong when she had to guard her. And so there's just the versatility of Strong and kind of joining that class of elite freshmen in UConn history. We saw Stewie walking around. Brianna Stewart had a couple of 20-point games as a freshman. Maya Moore also did that. But other than that, Sarah Strong is in a very elite group of women that have accomplished that.
Okay, so I feel like we started the show and we were just like, South Carolina did great. Okay, let's talk about UCLA. So let's go a little bit back to South Carolina because we touched on it a little bit. I want to talk about it a little bit more. What impressed you the most about what they were able to do tonight?
Well, the one thing other than the offense sharing the basketball was the defense. Their rotations defensively and staying locked in on the assignment. There were quite a few times the rotations happened. They got to stop. Then they come out and transition. I specifically remember the rotation, the block of the shot coming down, and te-hina Pau getting the three in transition. The kick out, Tessa Johnson. gets it in transition. She crosses the floor. She kicks it to Malaysia Fudd for 3. Like, that's how South Carolina's got to play. They got to be locked in defensively. When they're locked in defensively, create easy offense. And in the half court, when the offense is sharing and moving the basketball, especially the interior passing, that was back to what we're used to seeing from South Carolina. That makes them dangerous.
The interior passing is going to be important, but it's never a bad day when you shoot 63% from the three-point line as well. Speaking to those guards having confidence to pull in transition. But I thought tonight, when you look talking about the interior passing, it was the touch passes. We talked about it with UConn a little bit, but it was the ball attacking in the paint and then going right back out to the wing so that it could continue to move around the perimeter. They played with great conviction, I thought, tonight on both sides of the ball.
I'm sorry, but what happens with that is what South Carolina is starting to do now is they know where they want to do with the basketball before they get it
and
instead
they know
of catch it and figuring it out.
They're acknowledging where the help's coming from,
yes.
right? Because there was a play in the second quarter right over here on this baseline. Y'all can't see that, but it was over here. Raven Johnson and Sanaya Fagan, literally, ball goes inside. You saw the defense collapse Fagan back out to Raven Johnson, and then when they rotated out to the shooter, because they did shoot 63% from 3, layup because the ball goes back into the perimeter. It was just really well done.
Yeah. So one thing that we talked about pregame was how important it was going to be for the bench to get involved in this matchup, and they were able to do that. What did you see out of them, Ari?
I mean, let's look at the stat sheet.
Period.
South Carolina's bench points 40. Texas's bench points 22. They did what they needed to do. We were worried about the consistency of the bench because of last game showing, but they came out and did what they needed to do.
Well, but South Carolina started out slow.
They did.
Until the reserves came into the game, and Joyce Edwards, boy, did we see her grow up tonight.
Yeah.
She had a terrific game, right?
Period.
Malaysia Fudd. And also, Miriam Dowda, I thought that she came in and gave them some good minutes. And this is a player that's gotten limited minutes all season long. Dawn Staley went to her early, and she made her presence felt.
And that's the separator of South Carolina. When you have your starters and you could just replenish yourself, kind of like a Tennessee, but not the same hockey swap. But you have so many options, and that's the depth that set them apart.
Yeah,
Did you say hockey swap?
Is it?
Line
I like
change.
that.
Line change. Thank you.
I like hockey swap.
Hockey swap is cute.
I like
But
that.
we got highlights of Joyce Edwards going right now, which I think
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah.
We mentioned she had the double-double of 13 and 11. I just thought she did a great job of playing within herself.
Yeah.
You could tell that she was sharp on the game plan, defensively, offensively. She was it was crisp, and she wasn't pressing. I think sometimes in big spots, you look at freshmen, rookies, whichever word you prefer to use, and you wonder if they'll be able to meet the moment. In the close games, when South Carolina was trailing twice now to get to this point in the tournament, it was sort of the upperclassmen that were leaned upon based on their experience. But I thought Edwards did a great job of holding her own as a freshman tonight, which is practically a sophomore at this point, but, you know.
You have to compliment
still
Dawn
freshman.
Staley adjusting for that freshman because where has Joyce Edwards struggled? It was when she had her back to the basket and the double teams were coming. Well, what did Dawn do? She said, face up.
Yep.
Read the situation, and when she face up, how many times do we see her get downhill off the drive and really see and use, because the posts for South Carolina have guard skills, and using that ball handling to create her offense.
So Madison Booker. Let's talk about the other side of this matchup. Madison Booker. Sorry, I can hear our producer talking so loud about me. Madison Booker, she came out, she started very strong, but then obviously they weren't able to do what they wanted to do. How were they able to shut her down in this matchup?
Well, I think she shut herself down.
fouls.
Yeah.
And getting three fouls early, I think that really hurts. Now, the second quarter, or in the second half, she was available. But I think that it was defensively just constant pressure. They changed up who guarded her, put different bodies on her, brought double teams at times, and they attacked her on the offensive side.
That impacts the way you play in the game, too. Like, when you get those quick fouls like that and you want to do on for your team all 40 minutes, you just can't. You can't play as fierce.
And we opened up the show kind of talking about the inexperience of Texas, and I think that showed all the way through, honestly, right? Like, Madison Booker, part of what has made her so successful is, for the most part, she is pretty steady. But you can see, especially on that third foul, how it really
She's
bothered
just-
her.
It makes you
Yeah.
shake.
She's just a
shaky.
sophomore.
Yeah.
I think that was two big inexperienced mistakes.
Yeah.
Another thing that we talked about in the green room, and we talked about pregame, right, is the fact that Dawn Staley has Vic Schaefer's number, right? Now 8-0 in the postseason. Do you think that he's going to be able to bring a Texas team to this point again and possibly get another shot at a Final Four or a championship?
Yeah, I mean, because he's done a tremendous job of continuing to bring talent in. I think after this experience of understanding that you have got to be able to weather a storm, because this is the best of the best when you get to this point, and it is going to be a matter of punch and counterpunch. When you get punched, you can't lay there and wait for the EMT to get there.
Yeah.
And you don't have time for that. So you've got to have an answer to punch back and get up off the floor and come back at him.
Another thing that we talked about is the fact that Dawn she outcoached Vic in this matchup. We saw plenty of things that Texas was trying to do, throwing things out there that they hadn't done before. How was she able to outcoach him?
Well, I think that she had her team. They were on lock of you're not going one-on-one. There will be no hero basketball in Tampa. You've got to do it collectively as a team, and they own the paint. You talked about that, and really focused on getting the ball inside. For Texas, on the other hand, Kyla Olaker, I mean, every time she touched it, they brought double teams. At times, she ended up even falling on the floor. Just really closed up Texas's space. And in order to close the space in the paint, you have to play as a collective group.
Yeah. Is this what you guys expected in that first matchup?
Yes.
I didn't expect either one of these games to go like this.
That's what I'm saying. margin-wise.
The margin of victory.
Yeah.
There has never been a semifinal game where both teams have gotten blown out like that in over, 30 points? Was it
34.
Yeah.
Oof.
There's never been a semifinal
crazy.
game with that margin.
That's crazy.
Historically.
But you
When you
Thank
look
you,
at
Duncan, for
what
that point.
you look at what for Connecticut, you look at what they did to South Carolina in the regular season. I expected that team to show up, and they did. Why? Because Azzi Fudd was on point.
Yeah.
We were talking.
That's what I expected.
We were talking pregame. Does Azzi need to score 30? No, but she did the Azzi Fudd things. We were talking about the three-headed monster. You have Paige, Sarah, and Azzi who all contributed, and that's why.
Well, Coach, and you mentioned the fact that Azzi doesn't need to do everything because Paige does. But then when Paige has a down game, Azzi is able to step up, and that's what we saw.
And then
from
you
her
have
tonight.
Sarah.
Yeah, exactly. Sarah. Yeah, exactly. So
I go back and I said, what is Connecticut's weakness?
And we still looked
And
at
you
you like.
had to pause. Because when you take away one thing or one option that they have something else to answer that.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at Rethinking Possibilities presented by Invesco QQQ. We're going to take a deeper look at Joyce Edwards. We talked about her a little bit earlier. She had 13, 11, and 6, as we mentioned, her best game of the tournament. CP,
Yes.
you're rethinking the possibility of banking on a freshman.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen Joyce Edwards throughout this tournament, and especially really the 3 previous games leading up to this. There is a possibility that Joyce Edwards plays like that in the championship game against the pressure of Connecticut. Yes, she was fantastic today, but she has to do that consistently, and that's a lot of pressure to put on a freshman.
Yeah. So you guys.
I like
agree
it.
with that?
It's a whole lot of pressure until it's done, okay? And I think the beauty of being both of these programs that are the last 2 standing is those athletes don't go to those programs if they don't want the smoke.
Yeah.
They want the pressure.
You know,
and so when you look at the potential of Joyce Edwards seeing a Jana El-Alfi, there's opportunity there. Now Sarah Strong presents a little bit of a different problem, but there's still opportunity there, and we are going to get gold on gold, best on best, one-on-one in terms of a championship game. And so I definitely think there's a possibility, maybe not a double-double, but there's to me a great possibility that this freshman impacts this game in a tremendous way.
And this is a battle-tested freshman, right? Like, you look at the South Carolina teams in the past that, especially last year, they were undefeated going in. They didn't know what it was like to lose. They've lost 3 times this season. One was a blowout loss against Connecticut, and they have a tough preseason. They have a tough schedule the entire season. So I'm looking at, like, she knows what it takes to win. She knows what it takes to rise in tough moments. She has a great veteran leadership with 3 seniors, 4 juniors to help guide her through. She has Dawn Staley, who has been here so many times. Like, all the pieces are there for her to be able to handle herself in a poised ways in the final.
Yeah.
Yeah, South Carolina dominated the paint against Texas. In that Connecticut game earlier this season, Connecticut dominated the glass, out-rebounding South Carolina 28-44. So I think the game on Sunday, it's going to come down to who owns the glass.
Yeah. All right. That's going to be a very good matchup. Looking forward to it. Let's take a look at the guarantee presented by AT&T. Each of you guys are going to give me one guarantee that you are expecting on Sunday. Monica, you go first.
All right, I'm looking at the totality of South Carolina. What does the coaches say? When you hit somebody like this, it's but when you do this, you can strike a mighty blow. And so to me, the fist represents them getting productivity out of their bench. I think if South Carolina's bench can hold the line, be smart, stay out of foul trouble, obviously score, hold the defensive intensity, I think South Carolina will be the champions. But they've got to get productivity up and down their roster, including that bench.
Okay.
My
CP?
guarantee.
Oh, you okay?
Because I know CV is going to have a great answer.
Yeah.
My-
Because I know.
Because I know CV going to hold it
That's a
down.
guarantee.
That's a guarantee. She ain't going to tell you what to do. No, I guarantee you it will not be a blowout like nobody can forget in the regular season. I guarantee you that there will not be a 30-point difference in this final game. That I can guarantee.
We need that.
Yeah.
I guarantee.
See, she already proved it.
I guarantee that this is going to be a low-scoring game.
Oh.
I think because the defense that both of these teams play, I think that it is not going to be a beautiful basketball game. Just because both of these teams and coaches understand in order to win a championship, you got to play defense. And I think that I guarantee this is not going to be the high-scoring game people may anticipate.
She said, give
Okay.
him Duke and
Okay.
UNC.
Well, I guarantee that this is the matchup that everybody was anticipating, right? UConn
Okay.
taking on USC. If for the people that are not on this side.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really good matchup. This is the one that we expected. What are you most looking forward to when it comes to this matchup?
Well, I'm looking forward to the matchup of Sarah Strong and Chloe Kitts inside. I think that, I mean, Kitts brings that defensive tough mentality, and Sarah Strong is playing so well. Sarah brings that a little bit for UConn, too, so I think those two are going to go at it.
So this may not end up being the matchups, but I'm just thinking of starting point guards. I'm looking at Raven Johnson and Paige Bueckers like as a matchup that I am intrigued by. Now, I don't know if that will hold, that they will guard each other. I anticipate Raven to spend some time guarding Paige, indeed. But the pressure that's on Paige in terms of asserting herself and putting herself in the UConn lore, which comes with a championship now as a senior, I thought she played tremendous to get to these two games. I thought she was terrific tonight, but obviously the scoring outbursts, the 30 and the 41, or the 31 and the 40 to get here. So I want to see how she navigates that pressure with this being the last ride.
And I'm going to kind of cop out, but not really. I'm looking forward to the matchup, period, UConn and South Carolina. Historic, like 2022.
She's got a second win.
Listen.
We've been here for a long time, y'all. Ari did have coffee 10 minutes before our
historic
show.
battle. I love these two teams. They're very historic and just, all the things.
You know, I
Excellent.
love that. I love
do.
that because it used to historically be Tennessee
Yeah.
and Connecticut.
Yeah, and now look.
And now Dawn Staley has rekindled that rivalry
It's all because of
between
your piece
South
of good
Carolina.
net that you gave her. You gave her that kick, that caffeine that just hit me. You gave it to her, Coach.
I promise she's all right, everybody. I promise. Let's talk a little bit more about Dawn versus Gino and the rivalry that is. Because the one thing that we talked about in these two matchups today was the fact that one team has a lot of experience, the other one doesn't as much.
Yeah.
But these two teams, they get it, right? So when it comes to Gino and Dawn, how do you expect that battle to play out?
You know, I have seen Dawn evolve in her coaching because you remember how many times we would see those 11s form in her forehead and she would get mad and make that angry face. We don't see that anymore. Even when her teams get behind, she is as calm on the sidelines as Gino is. And so that demonstrates to me that she has all the confidence in her preparation. So when adversity strikes, she knows that her team has an answer.
Sometimes we mistake the calmness. I know as a regular viewer, they're like, Dawn, do something. But she knows her players. She knows this program like the back of her hand, and she sculpted them. She trusts them. The trust in your play. I think that's a differentiator of tonight, too. Just like looking in, I've never been a coach, so I don't know. But just overall trusting your team to do the right thing at the right time. Dawn has the patience to let that happen.
Retweet, repost. I guess it's not tweet
Re-X?
anymore. Repost all the things
Yeah.
that they
I don't
said.
think it's a re-X.
It's a repost.
We'll talk. You're right.
It's a
Yeah.
repost.
We'll talk a little bit more about this matchup on Monday, but looking ahead. Wait, I said on Monday. On Sunday. And we'll talk
be
about it
here
on
on
Monday,
Sunday.
too. We'll
I
talk
don't know
about it all
where.
next week, actually. But on Sunday, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But before we get to that matchup, what are your expectations? Who do you think is going to win? I think what I'm trying to say is, who do you think is going to win?
I expect.
Is that what you're looking for?
Here's the way I look at it. I go back to that earlier matchup in the season. South Carolina got embarrassed.
Yeah.
They got embarrassed. They lost by 29 points.
Right.
And I think that I have seen this South Carolina team, when they get into a revenge game, they take it to another level. So I'm giving the edge to the Gamecocks.
Okay. I mean, Holly asked Paige about it post-game. She was like, hey, y'all already played. And Paige was like, this is a whole other season. Hello. We're not
Yeah.
looking back at that. So what do you think is going to happen?
I agree. Clap back, punch back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the Gamecocks are going to let. They saw the response from the general public. They know the disappointment they had in themselves. Dawn said that it's uncharacteristic for them to have played like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come back. They're so deep. They have the willpower, the numbers for it. They have the talent for it. I think that it is going to be a low-scoring game, sure, CP, but I do think that they're going to get their lick back.
I'm on the opposite side a little bit, y'all.
Love that. I love opposition.
Just a little bit, although I'm literally working through this in real time because I think in these two matchups, currently, head coaches aside, there's more experience on South Carolina's side. But when you look at Paige Bueckers having been to four Final Fours, I think she's a special young woman, and I think some of that has been lost due to injuries for her. She's had the type of tournament that could carry a team to a championship.
I mean, she showed up. She
100%.
she's a big dog. You could tell by the first time she gets knocked, she's like, let's go. And it's like a different breed of Paige.
And to that end, we talked about it in the show.
Yeah.
Having Azzi Fudd as a running mate, for real this time.
Yeah.
Like, fully healthy, not trying to hobble through it.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like the two of them, I feel like it might go the other way.
So you're saying you think UConn's going to win?
I do think UConn's
All
going
right,
to get
cute. Look at that. We got two South Carolina and a UConn.
And
So
what did you got?
I don't want to make a prediction.
But you have to.
You have to,
because
like-
I would be, I'm not a tiebreaker. I think UConn. Now what?
We got a tie.
We got a tie.
No, but I do. I think you're right when it comes to the experience on the court, but I think Paige gets so hungry.
Yeah.
And having AZ there as her running mate, I think, a healthy urgency, right? So I think it'll be a very good matchup.
And she knows what's on the line.
Yeah.
This is
It's
to
her last
submit
time.
her
It's
legacy.
her last time.
We were talking about legacy earlier.
So
Submit
then
herself.
toss it up, even if we
Yeah.
don't have to take these two teams out of this conversation, but what do you think you're motivated more? Having been here and lost and it's your last time, or having been here and won already and you're trying to be the first team to go back-to-back for a program?
Ooh.
Because in every other sport that we cover, repeating is so
It's hard.
difficult.
Yeah.
I don't think South Carolina's thinking about repeating.
Okay.
I think they're thinking about
Revenge.
getting their pride
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Revenge. All right, it's a revenge for them, for both of these teams, I guess. All right, thanks for watching the wrap-up presented by AT&T. We'll see you guys on Sunday.